Ooh, hey, what is up? How's it going? Quite the episode indeed. My goodness gracious. Where to start? Hey, how's it going, everyone? At Alex, wow, devastating episode, I'd say so. I mean, I thought it was unbelievable. To get right into it, I thought the episode was unbelievable. I thought the writing was I thought the writing was amazing. Would I expect anything less from these writers? I thought the pacing was perfect. It was just, there was so much here. It was truly heartbreaking in many ways, going back and just sort of thinking about that dialogue in my head right now. Very devastating, definitely a game changer, that's for damn sure. That final scene was something, and it's finally here. With 4 episodes remaining, we're finally, for all intents and purposes, we are in the Breaking Bad timeline. Matthew Sanchez, I have mixed feelings on the jump forward. Nick saying he's not a fan of that episode. Yeah, like I said, the sort of final season, the sort of final arc and final culmination of the storyline, it's not gonna, it's hard to please everyone. To this day, when I first saw the ending of Breaking Bad back in 2013, I admit I wasn't a fan. But so far, I'm loving this. I'm loving it so far. I really am loving the story writing. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievably amazing. It was just, the episode was just, I really couldn't have asked for anything more. I love the way it was sort of paced. I was wondering about all the very sort of crucial details and how it was going to be displayed to us over the course of this episode, such as Jimmy and Kim meeting with the police and the conversation between Mike and Gus about how that was going to go down. The scene with Mike Ehrmantraut and Gus Fring discussing the construction on the super lab. How was this inevitable ending of this relationship going to occur on screen? I had all of these questions going into this episode, and I really enjoyed how it was displayed to us, for sure. That was just my opinion. I really enjoyed the pacing. I really enjoyed the writing, and I was just on the edge of my seat. And like I talked about a little bit in my previous live stream, just due to the fact that Kim Wexler's fate was completely open-ended when they were having that conversation in Kim's apartment at the very end of that episode. I was just sitting up. I was on the edge of my seat, just hanging on every single little piece of dialogue in that conversation. And oh man, talk about just some heartbreaking, just dialogue in that scene where, they say they love each other, but so what? And despite that, Kim just feeling like she had to end this relationship. So just unbelievable. My goodness. At Archive Media 1, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. It was fun for Kim, but a game to Jimmy, and he wants to win. Fun and games. Yeah, that was quite the piece of dialogue there, where Kim said that, the reason why she did not tell Saul that Mike told her that Lala was still alive was basically because she was having too much fun. And how if she told him that, it would inevitably lead to their breakup, and the way he would overreact. And I cannot wait to rewatch this episode and just sort of reanalyze the dialogue here. Of course, I'm just going off my very first watch here, but yeah, that title was very conspicuous when I first saw it, for sure, at Archive Media 1. I really wondered what was going on here. With such a devastating ending to the previous 2 episodes, I was just thinking, fun and games, how does this factor in? But my goodness gracious, what an episode, and what a final scene there. The final scene we've seen so far between Jimmy and Kim. Who knows? Maybe not to jump too far ahead of myself here. I know we have 4 episodes left, but maybe we see that, maybe there's a happy ending in all of this, in a state in the center of the country. I hope I'm not being too subtle, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. But yeah. Thank you so much, Archive Media. That was a heck of a conversation that occurred at the end of this episode. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. At Paul Sura, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. Anton, you know where to start. Thumbs up. Yeah, if you were a fan of this episode or just a fan of these streams, I'd really appreciate the thumbs up, as Paul Sura said. So, again, would really appreciate that for sure. So, man, thank you so much, Paul Sura, for the super chat. I love this episode. I really did. And it's still surreal. That final scene there with Saul Goodman sitting in his office talking to Francesca, basically about to start his day, which he had probably done many times before, because if we remember, again, not trying to get, maybe sort of working backwards here, but I'll probably work beginning to end here. But we saw that license plate of Saul Goodman's white Cadillac, and it said November '05. So I believe that's the expiration date on the car tag. So again, we're sometime in 2005 right now. We've probably jumped about a year in the future. We probably had a sort of year time lapse, and pretty amazing scene. I mean, we haven't had a jump like that in quite a while in this universe, just very unceremonious. I kind of go back to Granite State when Walter White first arrived at New Hampshire, and then when Ed the Disappearer came back, it was several months down the line. Walter White had grown his hair out. He had grown the beard, so it definitely sort of made me think of that time jump that occurred in Granite State, not a sort of time-lapse montage scene that we've also seen over the course of these two shows. So quite the jump there, and just so surreal. I felt like I was back in 2011, 2012, 2013. Just so surreal seeing Saul Goodman, basically who he was in the plot of Breaking Bad for all intents and purposes. We saw that for the first time in this entire series, and it was quite something to see, to say the least. At the Silent Revolution, definitely not a permanent time jump. That's an interesting theory. I could definitely sort of get into that in the future, down the line in the stream. That's interesting if they'll sort of go back to the Better Call Saul timeline. I hadn't really considered that, but part of me thinks we may sort of, kind of stay in this timeline now. It's been, we advanced about a year. It's about sometime in 2005, probably mid 2005. It was June of 2004 when this initially, when Jimmy and Kim's breakup happened, excuse me. So yeah, that's kind of interesting to see. So Kate Valentine, thank you for the super chat. I see you retracted the message, but thank you for the super chat nonetheless. So that is a great point, Joseph Wong. So a scene of Kim smoking with Emilio that never happened, right? Or it's her flashback that will come into play in the future? Yeah, definitely possible. I did not even think about that, Joseph Wong. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That behind the scenes fan footage that I talked about in a previous video. I remember that. That was quite the scene for sure. And yeah, you wonder. I mean, I thought maybe that scene takes place after Saul hits the ejector seat and flees to Omaha. Maybe Kim goes back there. Again, we don't know where Kim is. We don't. We know Saul is still in Albuquerque, but we don't know where Kim Wexler is. So it was Shakespeare. Thank you so much, Kate Valentine, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I thought like I talked about at the beginning of the stream, I thought the writing was impeccable. I thought the pacing was impeccable. That's just my opinion. Not everyone is going to, I guess, be a fan necessarily of how the episode was displayed to us in respect to time jumps, in respect to pacing, in respect to crucial scenes being displayed to us via people talking about them in dialogue versus us seeing it displayed to us on screen. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the metaphor there for sure, Kate Valentine. It was Shakespeare, and thank you so much for that super chat. So, at Pierre Aguilera, someone please explain Gus's wine scene. I will get to that. I will get to that for sure. So, but anyway, just kind of getting into this episode here. I mean, I really feel like I can just kind of go by this episode act by act, scene by scene, more or less. So again, the very beginning scene, we see a time-lapse montage scene, and of course, this scene is the day following everything that transpired with Lalo Salamanca and Howard Hamlin, where Mike says, go about your day, be Meryl Streep and Laurence Olivier, head held high like any other day that ends in Y, and it's revealed to us that Jimmy and Kim were able to do so. They went about their day. Saul Goodman, Saul Goodman setting up his office here, and of course we see that the styling is still in the pre-styling that Francesca designed before the new styling that we see at the very end of this episode. We see Kim going about her pro bono work. I was very curious about this scene. I was wondering if Kim was going to crack here, but no, she was steadfast. She did exactly what she was supposed to do. She did exactly what Mike told her to do, and of course, great scene here with Deputy Director Oakley. He was a part of the montage scene. And of course, at the same time, when this is all going on, like Mike Ehrmantraut said, it will all be cleaned up when you get back. Very sobering scene here where we see Mike and his crew cleaning up the mess, making it look like it never happened, being extremely diligent, even ripping through the drywall and the insulation to, I guess, get the bullet that was lodged in the wall. We see them cleaning it up, and, long story long, it's exactly how it was. It's like it never happened, is exactly what Mike said. And again, they're just going about the routine. A great montage scene that happens here. Again, the styling is still in the old styling that Francesca designed. It's still not in the new styling that we see at the very end of this episode. And yeah, that's what more or less happens here. That pretty much sums up the main part of this montage scene. But of course, the real sort of twist here is, despite the fact Jimmy and Kim were able to hold their head high and remain stoic and steadfast when they finally got back home, the look that Kim gave to that carpet where Howard Hamlin died, it told the whole story. And this scene here where they're looking at the apartment, and I did wonder. I told myself, how in the world can Jimmy and Kim just go about their lives and continue to live in this apartment? And as this episode displayed to us, they couldn't. It was impossible. And so we then see this great scene here. If I can flash again, Kim's look. I mean, the foreshadowing that was occurring here, I guess unbeknownst to us at the time, was just unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. Just the back and forth here. Again, like I said, I was on the absolute edge of my seat with this storyline because I just did not know how it was going to end with the open-ended nature of Kim Wexler's plot. And so, yeah, unbelievable. At Mil Lubnikow, thank you so much for the super chat. Once Saul mentioned a masturbator, I knew we were going to see a good old Badger. Right, we were going to see good old Badger. Writers should have mentioned the year on pre-Breaking Bad. Writers should have mentioned the year on pre-Breaking Bad. Yeah, that was definitely a callback to the first time we ever saw Saul Goodman in the plot of Breaking Bad, where he mistook Brandon Mayhew not for a small-time drug dealer, but as a public masturbator. Again, that was definitely a callback to Breaking Bad Season 2, the episode entitled Better Call Saul. The second part of your statement there, writers should have mentioned the year on pre-Breaking Bad. Again, I'm not sure what you mean by the second part of that statement, Mil Lubnikow. I apologize. Writers should have mentioned the year. I mean, we saw on the license plate that Saul's expiration for his white Cadillac expired in November of 2005. So I talked about it a little bit earlier in my stream, Mil Lubnikow. I think this takes place sometime in the mid-2005. I think that's when this takes place, even though we didn't get... I mean, I'm pretty sure that displayed the date to us for sure. I mean, if you can clarify your second part of that statement there, I'd be happy to discuss it. So, and again, I apologize. Like yesterday, the air conditioning in this room is acting up, so I have to step away for a quick second. I will be back in 1 second. I apologize. Like yesterday, it's getting really warm in here, so I apologize. I'll be right back. Ooh, man, I apologize for that. It is brutal in here. So yeah, that was just not gonna fly. So anyway, yeah, unbelievable episode. Like I was talking about, I apologize. My goodness, it was getting hot in here. So I apologize for sure. So yeah, like I said, just unbelievable scene here with with Kim Wexler, the foreshadowing in respect to her gaze here when just looking at that carpet where Howard Hamlin died, despite the fact where they were able to more or less get away with the whole thing, the guilt remains for Kim Wexler, absolutely. And then to flash forward here, again, we see this scene here of Mike, I believe, on a beach of some kind, burning. I don't know exactly what he was burning here. Again, I'll have to go back and rewatch this for sure. So he was definitely burning something to do with this case. Maybe it was the photos they took and the sort of evidence. A great scene here where he rips down all the post-it notes behind Jimmy and Kim's painting. An unbelievable scene here. Just the symbolism behind that. I mean, just unbelievable. But at Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. What an episode. Howard's funeral was so sad. Oh my goodness. I could not even begin on that. That is so true. Unbelievably true. Chuck would be rolling over in his grave right now if he could see these events. Nick Russ, that summation is just on point 100% there. That scene of the funeral, my goodness gracious. So many feelings, so many emotions in respect to that scene. Just, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but man, was that brutal to watch. That was almost the straw that almost broke the camel's back, I feel, for Kim, having to sort of lie and manipulate Howard's wife like that to save her own skin. My goodness, that was tough to watch. And really sort of, I mean, despite the fact that you're sort of heartbroken, if you will, for Jimmy and Kim's relationship ending, at the same time, you're like, man, these two characters are kind of very weaselly here. I mean, not very redeemable people whatsoever. Very just, again, I don't even know, the word is just very, like, emotionally manipulative. Almost a little bit sort of, it comes across a little sociopathic, a little bit. I'm no psychologist, so don't quote me on that. But again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but man, I agree so much. That scene at HHM, that was tough to watch. I agree. And thank you so much, Nick Russ, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. At Maximum Rock and Roll, the handicap tag Saul hangs in his car says 2008. Was that true? I didn't see that. Didn't the license plate say 05, if I'm not mistaken? Or did I? Am I totally dyslexic and I read that number wrong? Thank you so much for the super chat, Maximum Rock and Roll. I'd have to go back and look at that, but I mean, I don't know if it was it was definitely November 05. I thought that's what it said on the license plate registration, if I'm not mistaken. So at Ahmad Nori. I did notice that. It definitely, I definitely think they pulled those photos from Patrick Fabian's Instagram. I definitely thought that when I was looking at it. So yeah, Archive Media 1, the license plate tag definitely said November 05. So again, I didn't see the handicap tag. My goodness, classic Saul Goodman. You think that's sort of his parking spot, but at the time it's a handicap spot right in front of the door. And the reason why he can park there is because he has a handicap placard. Again, a gross misuse of that for sure. So again, I did not take a look at the handicap placard. I did see the license plate, but at Maximum Rock and Roll, I'll definitely have to take another look at that for sure. And thank you again so much for the super chat. So, did it say 08, the handicap sign, David Wartsky? I mean, I'll take your word for it when I go down there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not too well versed in those, but I could definitely, I could imagine that it would be many years down the line when those would expire. It would make sense to me. So, I see a lot of people talking about Gus. Don't worry, I'll definitely get to that scene. So again, Mike's burning stuff here, something to do with the, I think probably just burning evidence of Jimmy and Kim's scam again, just absolutely covering all tracks to establish an alibi, and then, so getting this scene right here. I mean, when Jimmy and Kim again, they couldn't even stay at their house, or their apartment. They had to stay at this hotel, and again, Kim is just so over. She cannot live with the guilt for all intents and purposes of what they did to Howard Hamlin. Absolutely. And, here Saul says to her that scene that was teased to us in that teaser of exactly what Mike told him in season 5 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Bad Choice Road, of one of these days we're going to get up, eat our breakfast, go about our routine, brush our teeth, And then we're going to realize that we never thought about it, any of it. And that's the moment we realize we can forget. Of course, he's trying to console Kim as much as he can here. And, maybe Saul has been through more of these situations, unlike Kim, especially with what happened in the desert and all of that collateral damage. Maybe this made Saul able to more internalize this sort of event that happened to them. But again, all of the foreshadowing here of Kim was just unbelievable, in my opinion. Just unbelievable here in the hotel. And again, despite Saul trying to reassure her and to effectively cheer her up, for lack of a better term, it was definitely a piece of foreshadowing for sure here, the cold opening scene of this episode. So, and anyway, following this, an unbelievable opening scene in Act 1. My goodness. And again, without getting sort of caught up too much in the details here, the main premise of Act 1 here was to basically establish Gus Fring's standing in the cartel that we first saw all the way back in Season 3 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled IFT, during that very first meeting that we ever see Gus meeting with Juan Bolsa and with Hector and with the cousins at the Los Pollos Hermanos Distribution Center. At Ronald Nash Jr., thank you so much for the super chat. Do you feel it's important to see on screen the plot holes filled of what happened between the time jump or the end of the relationship with Kim is justification enough? Again, that's a great point you raise. Again, I was going to kind of get to that at the end of this review when when that scene kind of comes up. But that's a really great point. It's something I've definitely thought about, where at this point in time, as of the conclusion of this episode right now, more or less the time jump and Saul becoming the person that he is basically just explained by the fact that his relationship with Kim ended. That this relationship ended. Again, we don't know the step-by-step process because we had about a year time jump in the future. But at this point in time, that's the justification for why he turned into who he was. And again, I truly, just based on the fact that there's only 4 episodes left, I understand why they did it, seemingly, because it would take a lot of explaining. And just, if we kind of go back to the pacing of Better Call Saul as a series, I mean, Season 1, talk about a slow burn. Season 1, Season 2, so much setup. Just, you could probably have an entire season just based on the breakup of Jimmy and Kim's relationship, the step-by-step process. You could probably have an entire season on the building or the buying of that house that Saul now lives in, and who he's frequenting with prostitutes for, to just be blunt about it. So again, that's a great question that you raise, Ronald Nash Jr. It's definitely something I thought about in the moment when I saw that time jump. And just based on the fact that there's so few episodes left, like I said, not to repeat myself, but I think that's why they did it. And right now, I don't have too much of a problem with it, to be completely honest, Ronald Nash Jr. I kind of like the way they did it, just based on their limited amount of on-screen time remaining in the series. And, but at the same time, maybe we'll get more of this story revealed to us, possibly again. I believe it was Joseph Wong, if I'm not mistaken with that name, talked about there's that behind-the-scenes fan footage scene of Kim smoking a cigarette and having someone and lighting out someone else's cigarette outside of Saul Goodman's office that hasn't taken place on screen in Season 6 of Better Call Saul yet, Ronald. But, we would imagine that scene's going to take place, but at the same time, Jimmy and Kim's relationship is already over. So, just food for thought there for sure. And I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. At Tom Fody, thank you so much for the super chat. The handicap placard says 11/20/08. Okay, I missed that for sure. I definitely was looking at that license plate, but I appreciate that for sure. So again, I don't know what. Again, I guess we don't really have a date for sure. I guess unless Saul's tags are super expired. I thought it was 05, but it could be, 2008 would be, if that's the date and we're in 2008 and not in 2005, then Walter White has just joined the Albuquerque criminal underworld because his birthday was in September of 2008. So definitely food for thought there, and I appreciate the confirmation there for sure, Tom Fody. And thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Definitely some food for thought, though, because we have 2 dates now. We have 05 and 08. I just assumed it was 05 just based on that license plate, but I didn't get a good enough look at that handicap placard, and that's a very crucial component of the story for sure. So, at Coyote G, thank you so much for the super chat. The scene with Howard's wife was intense. Thank you for the stream, Anton. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And oh yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier. That scene was just unbelievably intense, and I will get to it for sure. And man, that was tough to watch. Like I said, that was tough to watch, and it did not make me, have redeeming feelings for a character like Kim Wexler. It's quite the dichotomy and almost the cognitive dissonance that, despite just the heartbreaking nature of that relationship ending, I mean, we've seen it, basically cultivated and grown over effectively 5.5 entire seasons of the show. And you feel bad for them that the relationship ends, but at the same time, you go back to what they did to Howard Hamlin and how they're saving their own skin there, and it really does not make them look good to me whatsoever. So, yeah, that was quite an intense scene there. That, again, I had very mixed feelings about that for sure. So, very tough to watch. Seeing that all those photos of Howard Hamlin, just gone way too soon. What they did to him, man. Oh, that was tough. And thank you so much, Coyote G, again for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Ooh, but anyway, yeah, this scene here, again, great scene here. And again, not to sort of get caught up too much in the sort of nitty-gritty of every little detail that happens here, but Gus Fring arrives at Don Eladio's hacienda. Again, I talked about this in a previous video. This is actually the very first time that we've seen him there since all the way back in Breaking Bad in season 4 in the episode entitled Salud, which was, the time where he effectively, the climax of his entire revenge against the cartel, where he effectively kills the entire cartel. But of course, here he has to go late at night, very ominous, where he has to defend himself against Hector Salamanca's accusations that he was the one who set up Lalo Salamanca, and he has he doesn't have the proof, but he says that Lalo talked to him and told him everything. But okay, in the grand scheme of things, we know that nothing was going to happen to Gus here, and nothing did. His like I said, the main premise of the scene was to establish where he was precisely in the plot of Breaking Bad when we first met his character, when that meeting occurred at the Los Pollos Hermanos distribution center in the episode entitled IFT, after he calls off the hit on Walter White after the cousins were going to kill him for killing Tuco, the Salamanca mantra, sangre por sangre. So that's the main premise of the scene. And again, it was actually such a great detail here, and I completely forgot it before it happened. But that when we saw the grimacing of Gus Fring here in this scene, we remember that he had just been shot by Lalo Salamanca in the previous episode. He had some gunshot wounds, and despite the fact that he was shot in that chest with that body armor, I mean, as the gun dealer said in Breaking Bad in the episode, I believe entitled 1 Minute, when Marco and Leonel bought the bulletproof vest from him, when they shot the gun dealer, he said, "You freaking maniac, I think you broke my rib." You would imagine that maybe even Gus Fring has a broken rib from that gunshot wound that he took to to his body armor by Lalo Salamanca in the previous episode. So great piece of writing there, and a detail that was very important. But anyway, long story long, Hector's insinuations are shot down by Don Eladio because Gus Fring's alibi completely checks out. Marco and Leonel didn't hear the conversation that Hector is alleging that he had with Lalo. They saw his burned body. Don Juan Bolsa's brother-in-law, who's a police chief, which again is a callback to what he said to Gus Fring in season 3 of Breaking Bad, I believe in the episode entitled ICU, when he was killed in that episode, where he said his brother was a police chief, and he said he spoke to his brother, and he said that the dental records check out. So that was Lalo, who was charred at his hacienda. Nacho Vargas said he worked alone when the Peruvians and Los Odios Alvarez was paying him to do so. So all of that sort of checks out. All the alibi completely checks out. And at the end of the day, Don Eladio basically chalks up Hector's sort of insinuations. Again, it's not really outwardly displayed to us, but I kind of imagined it was something to do with him being sort of old and incapacitated, and the sort of grudge that he held against Gus. Don Eladio very dismissive, trying to appease him, trying to respect him, saying, have my room, maybe some girls will be there, just relax. And at the same time, him saying, Gus, you probably shouldn't stay here because I don't want the contention to happen between us. Again, sort of setting up how Gus is going to be in charge of the Northern Territory, working under Bolsa, exactly how it was displayed to us in season 3 of Breaking Bad. Like I said in the episode entitled IFT, when it was first displayed to us. And Juan Bolsa saying, I see the sort of anger in your eyes, and a little bit's okay, but as long as you know who's the boss. And that pretty much sums up the scene here, where, like I said, long story long of it, yeah, at Agent Neptune, the Eladio saying ding, 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 very dismissive of Hector. And we see, him kind of, even Don Juan Bolsa, who was had to laugh to be polite to the boss, but even he was kind of taken aback by that for sure. But that pretty much sums up the opening scene here, like I talked about, and great sort of shot there with the fire from the fire pit reflected in the glasses in Gus Fring's eyeglasses. Unbelievable scene there, just great scene, a scene that had to happen. And again, this episode here really sort of tied a bow on basically the ending of the Better Call Saul timeline for all intents and purposes, and really sets up the characters to reach the point where we first saw them in the plot of Breaking Bad. So really great opening scene here for sure. I really enjoyed this opening scene. It was quite something to see. So and like I talked about a little bit in a previous video, that sort of scene that again, I guess this was sort of again, I think it, again, I watched it on TV. I actually just got the free trial here to sort of refresh my memory here, but I believe that ended the first was that a continuation of the? I'm not sure. I think it cut to commercial here, but maybe it wasn't supposed to. But anyway, following this, we then see Gus Fring return home. A very great scene here where he finally opens up the blinds of his home, where he can finally sort of exhale and decompress a bit. And, that very sort of talked about scene in the wine bar sort of exemplifies that. But again, this sort of reminded me a little bit of when Walter White hears the announcement on the radio of the bombing that occurred at Casa Tranquila, about how 3 people died in the car in the episode entitled Face Off, where he could finally just sort of exhale and the threat of Gus Fring was now neutralized. This kind of reminded me back to that scene a little bit, where Gus Fring could finally open up the blinds. He could finally exhale. Lalo Salamanca's threat is finally over. The cartel, despite Hector's suspicions, I'm in good standing with Don Eladio. I can go about my life. I can go about effectively my myopic revenge against the cartel for killing my business partner, Max Arciniega. Great scene here of him looking down in the pool again at the very end of that scene. Great scene here. Just again, a callback to when Max Arciniega was shot in the head by Hector Salamanca in the episode entitled Hermanos, the flashback to the 80s, the very first, time Gus Fring was ever at Don Eladio's hacienda. So just great scene there all around. And again, kind of to get ahead of not to get after that, we then see Gus Fring finally meeting with Mike Ehrmantraut in the sort of in his laundry room that connects to the house next door. And then Mike tells him about the lawyers. Gus Fring asks, "What about the lawyers?" And he says, they played the right part. They were maybe even better than what I told them to be. The police don't suspect them whatsoever. As far as the police are concerned, he drove out to the coast and committed suicide. And, because they can't find a body, the case can never be officially wrapped up, but for all intents and purposes, it's over. And then, of course, following this reassurance, Gus then says to Mike, how soon can we continue construction on the lab? Mike says, we're going to need to find a new engineer. That could take a while. And Gus Fring then, of course, says, start right now, start today. And so we'll see. Again, someone asked that in the previous live stream about who's going to finish the construction on the lab. And again, we've already talked about here, we saw the dates of 05 and 08. Depending on, if it's 2008, you could imagine that the lab is maybe basically already built. Maybe the machines are not in it yet that we first saw Gail Bedecker actually opening up in that flashback scene that occurred in season 4 of Breaking Bad, in the cold opening scene in the episode entitled Box Cutter, where we saw Gail Bedecker opening up all the packages. That takes place way down the line, not until Walter White is actually making his blue methamphetamine. But yeah, it's a sort of interesting sort of point of the storyline here. And then Mike sort of gives Gus a very sort of interesting look here. Again, we don't really know what's going on in Mike Ehrmantraut's head here in this scene, but he does what he's told, apparently, by Gus Fring. So at Milubnikow, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. How come Eladio didn't accept Hector's allegations? At Richie MC, I see your super chat as well. I'll get to that for sure. But again, I kind of just talked about that, Milubnikow. In my humble interpretation of that scene, I kind of just say Don Eladio just sort of wrote off Hector's allegations as just maybe him being feeble and weak, and then maybe even his brain being somewhat damaged from the stroke, compounded with the fact that his just visceral hatred towards the Chicken Man. And like I've talked about in a couple past videos, I think characters like Juan Bolsa and Don Eladio are so wrapped up in just the making the money, and how Gus Fring is just, as Juan Bolsa himself said in the episode entitled Sabrosito, he's a genius of distribution, and just the fact that he's an absolute earner makes him want to look the other way. Again, it sort of explains why Lalo needed absolute dead-to-rights proof that Gus Fring was undermining the cartel, because he could not just kill an earner like this. He was just an unbelievable earner. I mean, we saw the stacks of money, the millions and millions of dollars he was bringing in on a monthly basis for the cartel. So, again, I think Don Eladio didn't want to believe it, to say the least. But again, like I said, his Gus Fring's alibi was just airtight, like I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream. So again, that's my interpretation of why he rejected Hector's allegations. So, and again, I talked about it a little bit earlier in my stream if you want a little bit more step-by-step process. And again, thank you so much for the super chat, Mill Love Cow. So, at Richie MC, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you so much, really appreciate it. Don Eladio character does not scare me. You, again, I think this had just something to do with the fact that we know the ultimate fate of his character. We know exactly what happens to him, and just like I talked about, all of it was sort of right under his nose, Gus Fring sort of undermining him, and of course we as the audience know, because we can just see a direct sort of line in the Gus Fring's brain and his sort of thinking. But again, like I talked about, I think he just kind of wants to look the other way because Gus Fring is just such a good earner. And it's actually kind of an irony of this whole thing, just in my opinion, where Gus Fring wants to undermine the cartel. He wants to take out the entire cartel. But in order for him to sort of bide his time and to sort of hold his place, he has to make millions of dollars for them in the sort of short term. So it's just kind of the irony here of he wants to destroy these people, but in the short term, in order to stay on their good side, he has to make them millions and millions and millions of dollars a month, which makes them, really like him. So yeah, I know what you mean. He's not scary in a sense. Again, he's the sort of head of the cartel. He's not going to ever do the dirty work. He's never going to get his hands dirty. He always has sort of henchmen to do his bidding. When he's sending those men to sort of hit Gus Fring's refrigerator trucks in season 4 of Breaking Bad. That's sort of plot that ensues right before Gus Fring accepts his ultimatum in the episode entitled Salud. So I talked about that a little bit in my previous stream. There's a lot of ambiguity a little bit in the sort of very nitty-gritty details of that relationship in Breaking Bad. And even so much as why he even hit his trucks in the first place. But again, that's sort of a discussion for a different video. But Richie MC, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Ooh. But yeah, great scene here with Mike and Gus, like I just talked about. And then, of course, we're at the wine bar scene that I know a lot of you have been talking about for sure. So yeah, so this scene here. So again, when I was watching the scene, when it started here with Gus Fring in a wine bar, he had just talked about continuing construction in the lab. I wondered if maybe the scene had something to do with that. So I was kind of interested to see what was happening here. So then the scene just kind of built, and he's ordering wine and he's going about it, and then I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And then to get into it, at Connor the Esquire, thank you so much for the super chat. Boy, that teaser, does Saul pull a scam in the mall? Yeah, it's a great question, man. That was pretty ambiguous there. Again, you would imagine that takes place, that definitely sounded like Saul Goodman's voice for sure. Again, that location seems completely unknown to me. It didn't look like the mall in Omaha, Nebraska, but yeah, I kind of, that was a little bit of a head scratcher there, that teaser, for sure. Not to get too far ahead of myself here, but yeah, that was a little bit of a head scratcher at Connor the Esquire. I didn't know what to make of that for sure, but in the grand scheme of things, that teaser just sort of reminds us that the Breaking Bad timeline is officially here. Better Call Saul, it's the timeline is effectively over. And like I said, I really liked how it was done, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode for sure. I mean, I was looking forward to this one, and my goodness, I can't wait for the next 4, so. But anyway, kind of getting into it here, this scene where, Gus Fring, again, he's at the bar, he's ordering wine. I'm like, okay, what's the payoff here? Who is he meeting someone? What's going on? But again, before I get into the sort of details of it, again, it was sort of a continuation of, to me, I would just sort of, as they said, "Oh, Gustavo, Mr. Fring, it's so good to finally see you." It was likely he hadn't been there in a very long time, ever since everything that happened with Gus Fring, because he had to be holed away where he couldn't be out in the public. So again, he could just sort of use an alibi. Oh, I was busy, but now I can sort of frequent a location that I've really enjoyed going to before Lalo Salamanca was trying to kill me. So again, we see him ordering wine. We see him having a good time. And then, of course, we have the sort of scene here with the, oh, should not be playing that. But then we have the scene here with the bartender. So, again, I've seen a lot of people here. Again, the scene was very ambiguous. We see them having a very good chat. They're talking about wine. Gus Fring seems very immersed in the conversation. They're going back and forth. And, of course, following this conversation, this waiter here, or again, there's a term for someone who's an expert in wine. Is it like, again, it starts with an S. Like, again, I'm not sure about the word. It's like, I don't want to, someone can probably say it, but I think he's more than a waiter. He seems like a wine expert. It starts with an S, I believe. But anyway, they're having this conversation here. They're going back and forth. Gus seems very immersed in the conversation, very much sommelier. That's the word. Thank you, Matt Joyce. Thank you. Sommelier, I think that's the word. So, Ancient Neptune snob. Oh man, sommelier. That's the word. Yes, I'm not a big drinker, so I'm not too familiar with this. Wine sommelier. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it. No name 99, no face 88. But anyway, they're having the conversation here, and then Gus Fring is enjoying himself, and then of course, the sommelier says, "I'm gonna find this very exclusive bottle of wine. I'll show it to you. Let me bring it to you. I can't open it, but I'd love to show it to you. The bottle itself is a work of art." And then, of course, we see Gus say he would love to do that. Again, kind of trying to fast forward here to when, again, they're having the conversation here. But of course, here, following this, we see Gus, prepared to have this bottle of wine displayed to him. But again, we then see Gus Fring then look forward and again look very introspective here. And we then see him very abruptly and very unceremoniously tell the barback, or the bartender, again, I forget the name of the sommelier off the top of my head, but tell him that I've been called away. And again, he pays for his wine and leaves, thus ending this scene. Now, again, this scene was very ambiguous here, but again, just my interpretation of it, again, speaking for no one else, I know that even Vince Gilligan himself said that, Gus Fring's business partner, Max Arciniega, they were probably much more than business partners. Even Vince Gilligan said that. That's his interpretation. And over the course of this series, including this scene, this sort of, Gus Fring's, personal life has been very ambiguous. David, the bartender, is Brett. That's right. Thank you so much, David Wartsky. Gus Fring's personal life has been very ambiguous. There's even been sort of somewhat contradictory details that occurred when Gus Fring said that he had children in season 3 of Breaking Bad. Again, the episode title is slipping me. I don't remember exactly which one it was. It might have been Half Measures, if I'm not mistaken, potentially, maybe, or it might have been a couple episodes before that, or one before that. But again, he said he had children. His personal life has been very ambiguous. At the same time, it's been heavily implied that he and Max Arciniega were more than just partners. And again, this is just my off the top of my head interpretation. This is just my interpretation of the scene. But again, it was very ambiguous, but maybe, Gus Fring, again, to sort of use Vince Gilligan's analogy here, maybe Gus Fring was attracted to this man in more than just a platonic way. Maybe he felt like they had a true connection to each other, and he wanted to pursue this. But again, to kind of just use an analogy to Margarete Ziegler, where even though Lalo had completely manipulated her, the point I'm getting at here is, like Margarete Ziegler told Lalo that she just, while she was very attracted to him and she wanted to invite him in her home, she just had not gotten over the feelings that she had for her late husband, Werner. And again, this is just, you have to sort of take into account that if Max and Gus were more than just business partners, but maybe you can say that despite the fact that Gus, maybe there's a sort of somewhat desire of him to move on with his life here and, be with someone else or sort of, have a relationship in any capacity with someone else who he has a real connection with. He's just unable to do so because of that sort of, maybe he's just not over the sort of his feelings for his late partner Max Arciniega in the same way Margarita Ziegler wasn't over Werner. Again, that's my interpretation of this scene here. I don't know what else, I don't know what other people are thinking about this scene. That was kind of the only thing that sort of made sense to me, because if you really don't sort of put that sort of editorial spin on it, the scene does seem a little bit superfluous in my opinion. So yeah, that was just my opinion on the scene. But at the end of the day, one of the things I loved about this scene was it was just as ambiguous as Gus Fring's personal life has been the sort of entire series. And I kind of like that, they sort of, it's still ambiguous. I think you definitely still have plausible deniability despite this scene. And that was just sort of my interpretation of it. So I don't know what everyone else thought about it, but that sort of just was the only sort of logical continuation I had about why the scene was put in there. Again, sort of a continuation to just him being able to decompress after the just sort of heightened tension that he had when Lalo Salamanca was a threat. Kind of going back to that scene right there with Mike and him in the basement again. Another kind of going all the way back to Don Eladio, but again, sort of, Mike saying to him, the doctor prescribed these just in case you sort of survived and came back. And just an unbelievable sort of, again, piece of writing there where, Gus Fring is just traveling to Mexico to meet with Don Eladio at his hacienda because he was called there to do so. But again, he had to cover up and hide the fact that he had all of these gunshot wounds and he was in no position to travel whatsoever. But again, like Vince Gilligan sort of said, Gus Fring is kind of a genius and he's kind of a sort of super character, sort of like Walter White and Lalo Salamanca. He sort of has these just unbelievable powers. He's truly a genius in many respects, and he has these abilities that not all characters have. So, again, that was just my summation of the scene. So, at Tommy, so who are we thinking the antagonist is now for the remainder of the show? That's a great question there. That is a really great question there, Tommy. I hadn't even considered that. And, you're right. There really is no antagonist anymore, seemingly, off the top of my head. I mean, again, characters like Gus and Mike, their sort of protagonist-antagonist labels were very nebulous and ambiguous in Breaking Bad. And same with Saul Goodman as well. And we're kind of in that sort of ambiguity territory where there really is no good and evil now. It's sort of the sort of ambiguity of morality that's coming in. So it's a great question there, Tommy, for sure. But yeah, something to think about for sure as we head into these remaining 4 and final episodes of the series. Just bittersweet to even say. So then following this, another great scene here that happened with a scene entirely with Mike Ehrmantraut and with Nacho's father, Manuel Vargas. So anyway, following this, we see Mike getting home from what is likely work with Gus Fring, and we see him just going about his daily routine. Nick Russ, thank you so much. Before I get into this, Nick Russ, thank you so much for the super chat. Connor the Esquire, I'll get to that as well. I feel like we have to see Kim again. There's no way this is her series exit, right? I felt so. I don't know, simple, but maybe that's the point. I tend to think so for sure. I feel like, this series has just been so dark in so many respects, Nick Russ. And like Saul Goodman said in that teaser we saw after the episode entitled Plan and Execution, where he said after all of that, a happy ending. Again, maybe I'm being too idealistic here, Nick Russ, but part of me thinks that we're going to see that sort of happy ending reuniting of Jimmy and Kim in some capacity with Gene Takovic in Omaha. Maybe that's possible. Maybe that's too much of a happy ending, but honestly, like, I've talked about in the past how I had a little bit of I didn't think the Breaking Bad ending was sort of dark enough, and I thought it was a little bit too much of a happy ending, but just based on the sort of nature of the sort of dark, just unbelievably dark plots that we've seen again and again and again, just the unbelievable sort of horrible things that have happened to all these characters, maybe I'm just getting too sentimental here, but a Gene and Kim reuniting of somehow, yeah, you would imagine that, I don't think that's her series. It just didn't feel like a series exit. It felt like a abrupt sort of ending for the time being, but I definitely think we'll see her again. I mean, Joseph Wong talked about that behind-the-scenes fan footage of her that we haven't seen in an episode so far, unless it was never put in for some reason. I guess that's possible, but yeah, it's a great point for sure, Nick Russ, and thank you again so much for the super chat. Connor the Esquire, thank you so much for the super chat. I see you, Coach Beer, as well. I'll get to that for sure. Quick, what song do you predict Better Call Saul will end with? I mean, that's impossible to say, Connor the Esquire. That's like trying to predict what the what are going to be like the lottery ticket numbers. I don't even play the lottery. I mean, I have absolutely no idea. I couldn't even tell you the truth. I wasn't expecting the song that Breaking Bad ended with. Again, maybe I was totally off base here. Again, I have absolutely no idea what song Better Call Saul will end with. I just don't know. I would imagine it's going to be, who knows, maybe it won't even end with a song. It's possible. I mean, I guess it's possible it won't, but I did wonder, I mean, to be truthfully honest, I was kind of thinking about this question back when Breaking Bad was ending at Connor the Esquire, and I wondered that maybe the series would end with "Out of Time Man," like the pilot episode ended with that song. I was kind of hoping for that sort of bookend continuity. It didn't happen, but again, I couldn't tell you what song it's going to end with. I mean that's an impossible question. I mean it's endless theoretically. I mean I could tell you the songs it's not going to end with, more or less. I could tell you songs that it wouldn't end with as opposed to songs it would end with. But you don't think I don't even know if I want to go there. But again, Connor the Esquire, thank you so much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. So. At Coach Beer, thank you so much for the super chat. I like that number for sure, 609. I like that. Great number there. But Coach Beer, I was anticipating a Kim reunion in the Gene timeline, but maybe now it'll be during the Breaking Bad timeline. Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely possible. Again, Joseph Wong, thank you again for bringing that up. That again, I completely spaced my mind the fact that we have that behind the scenes fan footage of Kim smoking that cigarette outside of the law offices of Saul Goodman and Associates that hasn't been seen yet. But yeah, it's possible. Again, but at the same time, again, we don't know where Kim is. We know the relationship ended, but we don't know where she is, and we've seen that sort of very conspicuous teaser of Gene Takovic walking by that cork board with the $5 million reward poster that he rips down. And if you take a good look at the flyers in that poster, we can see flyers for events that are occurring in Albuquerque. So maybe for some reason Gene Takovic is in Albuquerque. So maybe that sort of reunion happens there. Again, we're really sort of shooting in the dark here. And, I just don't know. I don't think that's the last we've seen of Kim. It just did not feel like a proper send-off to me. I mean, with sort of the endings of Lalo and Nacho and Howard being just so much more emotional and symbolic. I mean, that scene was very emotional and symbolic for sure, but it definitely didn't feel like an ending to me, as Nick Russ said. And so yeah, again, thank you so much, Coach Beer, for the super chat. And it's definitely something to think about. And again, in the grand scheme of things, you wonder if we're gonna not see Kim Wexler for a while. That's another great question. We've seen Kim in almost, basically every single episode this season, and I haven't even really considered the fact that, maybe in the episodes to come, we won't see Kim Wexler. It'll be quite the sort of change of pace if, she's really not a part of the story anymore, because I know people talked about, maybe Jesse or Emilio going to her for legal service. I've seen those theories floating out there, but as we remember, and as what takes place later in this episode, and I'll get to it, Kim Wexler is no longer a lawyer. She informed the Bar Association that she's not going to be a lawyer anymore, and I'll get to that scene a little bit down the road. But again, thank you, Coach Beer, so much for the super chat. And that's a great point. Just where is Kim Wexler? Where in the world is Kim Wexler, and how does she fit into the remaining 4 episodes of this series? It's a great question. At Holden Thompson, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think Jimmy's goldfish will snitch? That is hilarious, man. That is absolutely hilarious. I didn't even think about that. So that's funny, man. I appreciate that for sure. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. That's a good one. That is a good one for sure. Again, not to go too far down the rabbit hole here, but if anyone is a Simpsons fan, this episode might have been a little bit before my time, but I saw it after it aired. The Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, when they're interviewing the witnesses to Mr. Burns' shooting, and it was Maggie Simpson and Santa's Little Helper. So your sort of comment kind of reminds me of that. So goldfish? I don't know if the goldfish can incriminate anyone, but that's hilarious, man. But yeah, again, getting back in this episode here, again, not again trying to not get too sort of bogged down. I mean, this was a pretty important scene here for sure. But again, Mike returns home from work, doing what he's likely done every single. Well, not lately, because again, he's finally decompressing too. Because like he said, over the course of season 6, there were points in the time where he hadn't been home for what, like 2 hours in an entire week, because he's always been working. He's always been on call. He's always been on the clock, trying to protect Gus Fring from the looming threat of Lalo Salamaga. He's basically Gus Fring's number 2 for all intents and purposes. He's his right-hand man. He's the one organizing the schedules and telling which men to go where. He's definitely the second in command. He is the top lieutenant of Gus Fring, and we see him here finally putting his gun in the secret hiding hole that we saw him use, I believe, back in season 2 of Breaking Bad for the first time. Season 2 of Better Call Saul, after the episode entitled Nailed, I believe, is when he had that. I'm not sure if that's the first time we saw it, but we definitely saw that hiding hole after he stole the money from the cartel and the tires of the refrigerator truck in the episode Nailed, when he stole the $200K. And Tom Fody, thank you so much for the super chat. I suspect we'll see Francesca get the call at the payphone from Kim. Francesca will explain what happened, and that will somehow connect her to Gene. Definitely possible. I like that theory for sure, Tom Fody. Definitely think that's possible. Again, we have to remember about that phone call that Francesca is supposed to take on Saul Goodman's birthday. That was told to her in the only scene we've seen of the Breaking Bad timeline until now, seemingly in the episode entitled "Quite a Ride." And again, he tells someone to talk to a lawyer, say Jimmy sent you. But again, is that Kim? I mean, who else could it be, that lawyer? So again, that's a good point for sure. It's definitely something to think about. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me that Jimmy would be talking to Kim, and sort of Kim would be the the person who sort of Saul wanted to contact, maybe when shit was hitting the fan. But of course, at the same time, by going with Ed to disappear, he can't talk to his friends or loved ones ever again, as he said to Walter White in the episode entitled Crawl Space. And also before that, when he first introduced him to him, I believe, in the episode entitled Open House. But yeah, those are some good points there for sure at Tom Fody. So definitely something to think about for sure. And again, I've made videos about it in the past about how that scene in the episode entitled Quite a Ride is going to tie into season 6 of Better Call Saul. And it's definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing for sure. And thank you so much for the super chat, Tom Fody. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's a great point you raise. Again, I really don't know who else he could be talking about besides Kim. And like people have said so far, I definitely don't think this is sort of Kim's exodus of the series. I definitely think she's going to be, coming back in some capacity somehow to maybe sort of tie a bow on this happy ending in whatever form it ends up taking. So. Ooh, but yeah, like I said, Mike comes home, he can finally decompress, he puts his stuff away in that hiding hole, he sits down, has a beer, and starts to watch, TV, but at the same time, right before he did that, he looked at that ID of Manuel Vargas that he took from Nacho Vargas' safe in the episode entitled Carrot and Stick in Season 6, and again, there's sort of a feeling of unease that he has, where he's unable to sort of decompress and relax in this scene, and of course, we then see him go back and open up the case again, and again, eventually he finally places a phone call to Manuel Vargas, and they have this conversation outside of his upholstery shop where Mike tells him what happened to Nacho Vargas, and he says, he wasn't a bad person, he had a good heart, but he got involved with some bad people, he wasn't like them, what he went through was quick and painless, and, justice will be served. And of course, at the same time, Manuel said, what do you mean justice? Like, what you're talking about is revenge. And again, this scene was actually kind of, a little bit ambiguous here. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, I just really feel that Mike did more, again, I don't know what he set out to do here, what sort of, he was trying, what sort of, again, I guess these were the loose ends that sort of Mike was sort of tying up, as the episode description said, but a very sort of emotional piece of dialogue here where he basically tells Mike, you gangsters and your revenge, you're all the same, effectively calling Mike, a gangster. You're just like the rest of them. You're just like all these other, cartel, the way Manuel Vargas probably sees it, cartel goons, these thugs, these gangsters, you're just like the rest of them. And I think that really sort of hits home with Mike here for sure. And again, he tried to sort of give Manuel some reassurance where, you don't have to worry about the Salamancas, justice will be served. But again, Manuel wants nothing to do with this. And again, it's very ambiguous here what's going to happen. Agent Neptune, I see the super chat, I'll get to that for sure. But, again, Mike made that promise to Nacho that his father would always be protected, but again, Manuel really wants nothing to do with Mike. So, again, it's just a very ambiguous scene here. And I know Mike was trying to do the right thing, but he was totally rejected. And to me, it almost seemed like he did more harm than good. So it was a tough scene here to watch for sure. Another very emotional scene that happened here. And, to see sort of Mike get called that gangster, you're just like the rest of them. Even though we know Mike, talks about how, he's known, good cops and honorable thieves. There, you can be a good criminal or a bad criminal. And we know Mike has a lot of honor to his name, but, it was a tough scene to watch. Very ambiguous. I'm going to go back and have to watch it again for sure. But, really tough scene here to say the least. And, he made that promise to Nacho, but I mean, I guess, Nacho could have maybe could have pretty much guessed that this is how his father would have reacted to all of this. But again, a very tough scene to watch here for sure. So, and that kind of, sums up sort of Mike's scene here in the middle of this episode at the, I believe this was Act 3, if I'm not mistaken. So, at least the way it was displayed on television. So, at Agent Neptune, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Kim didn't tell Jimmy about Lalo because the fun would end. Howard was the result. Kim had fun. Sounds like someone. Again, I mean, she definitely, I'm going to get to that scene for sure at Agent Neptune. She said that she didn't tell Jimmy about Lalo because she wanted to protect him, but in reality, she didn't want to do it because she didn't want to tell Jimmy about Lalo because, like you said, she didn't want the fun to end. And, and she knew that their breakup would basically be the inevitable cause of all this because of Jimmy's so overprotecting and how he would just be, throw it away and they would stop the plan because he was just so unbelievably afraid of Lalo. And you see, Howard was sort of the result of their game, is sort of what you're saying. Howard was the sort of result of the fun they had. Sort of Kim had fun, sound like someone. Again, I'm not too sure what you're sort of getting at there. I mean, if you sort of Howard was the result of, again, yes, like you said, Kim definitely said she didn't tell Jimmy because she was having too much fun. Howard was the result of all the fun they were having, his sort of demise in their apartment. Sort of Kim had fun, sound like someone. Again, I don't know who exactly you're talking about. Who did you have in mind that Kim sort of sounded like at Agent Neptune? Walter. I see. I see what you're saying there. Where Walt admitted that when he said what I did, and Skylar says to him and Felina, if I have to hear you say one more time that you did this for your family, and he says, I did it for me, I was alive, I was good at it. So yeah, I mean, I kind of see that a little bit, where, I mean, Howard Hamlin was dead on, where he said, you're two sociopaths, you're like Leopold and Loeb, like, you didn't do it for the money, screw that, you did it for fun, you get off on it. And in many respects, he was dead on. Kim and Saul, in many respects, they were getting off on the sort of scheming and the manipulation and the sort of step-by-step process of this plan. They really were getting off to it, as how to use Howard Hamlin's words specifically. So yeah, I mean, I think you're onto something there. Kim sort of sounding like Walter White a little bit. Yeah, I was alive. I was good at it. Yeah, in many respects, that is why she did what she did to Howard Hamlin. But as they say, stupid games win stupid prizes sometimes. And yeah, you play the hubris. You play too close to the sun. Sometimes you're gonna get burned. And Walter White she did break bad. I had Agent Neptune. She did break bad. And again, that scene at the funeral, which is coming up here, which really goes into what you were saying at Agent Neptune. That was something to see for sure. So, oh my goodness, this scene here, Howard Hamlin's sort of funeral reception in the lobby of HHM. What a scene this was. A little bit of an Easter egg where they say they got the new trash can that Jimmy always kicks, but my goodness, this was a tough scene to watch for sure. This was a tough scene. And yeah, these definitely look like a Patrick Fabian's Instagram photos, and pretty well done in respect to having the photos. I kind of like that sort of aspect of this. But Jimmy says to Kim, we'll pay our respects. We'll put in our 20 minutes and we'll get out of there. They talk with Rich, basically saying, HHM is downsizing. This is probably gonna be the last time we're all in this room together. They're downsizing again. It's sort of an unintended consequence of what they did. How a lot of people are probably going to be out of work because of the downsizing, and people are going to lose their jobs and things to that effect. So just kind of another aspect of the storyline. And yeah, so much here. But again, the big payoff in this scene is really when Jimmy and Kim speak to Cheryl, Howard's late wife, or the wife of the late Howard Hamlin. And she basically just goes right at them saying, like, you were the last people to see them alive. Tell me what happened. And again, Saul sort of, again, they both lie here, but Saul tells a more believable half-truth where, he denies all of the accusations that Howard was making about them towards his wife, about how Jimmy and Kim were going after them, and how Jimmy said that, I didn't end on a good note here, and, maybe I was a bit jealous of Howard because he always had the respect of my brother, and I didn't. And again, that's very manipulating in its own sense because he's trying to save his skin. He's kind of telling a half-truth. He's not telling an outright lie, but Kim in this scene, my goodness, when she is just lying through her teeth and telling an absolute fabrication to sort of justify their alibi that Howard Hamlin was snorting something late at night and she was a witness to it, which is a total fabrication, an absolute fabrication. Man, does it make just sort of Kim look so unredeeming. And it was tough to watch. It really was. It's like, wow, my goodness. It's like you view Kim in a different light. I know she's trying to save her own skin, but I know people liked Kim and saw her as a very sort of redeemable character and a sort of protagonist to root for. But after this scene, and it was tough to watch. It was really tough to watch this sort of fabrication, and where, again, this sort of manipulation of it, where she even tells Clifford Maine, in your entire time working with him, did you ever seen anything like this? So, again, it's, and of course, the thing is the way they manipulated him with the cocaine falling, the fake bag of baby powder falling out of his locker. He even says, now is not the time to discuss this, because if he answered honestly, it would again reinforce Jimmy and Kim's alibi. And then, of course, Cheryl leaves distraught, the window of Howard Hamlin. And, it's a tough scene to watch here. It really is. At Peter Ingenito, again, she could have kept her mouth shut. But again, the way she sort of, what she said, it really sort of justified her alibi. Where, Clifford Maine sort of didn't deny it, sort of saying, I didn't see this, but I saw other things. So, again, she could have kept her mouth shut and, maybe just, it would have made her look better. But it's weird, by justifying her alibi more, at the same time, it just, it made her look a lot worse as a person. It was really tough. Ooh, man. So again, that's in that scene in the after Cheryl leaves distraught. Again, that's this scene here in the HHM parking lot about how, it's done, now the healing begins. Saul basically saying, like, this is something we had to do, now we can start to move on with our lives. And then, yeah, at Michael Fitzgerald, PhD, Kim was broken. Yep, Kim was absolutely broken. And in hindsight, when she sort of kissed Jimmy and drove away, it definitely, at the time, even before the sort of big reveal happened late in the next sort of a scene here, it definitely sort of looked like a goodbye kiss at Peter Ingenito, the kiss of death. Definitely the death to the relationship. It's definitely what I thought about. So, at Alexander Lopez, what was the significance of that wine scene with Gus? I talked about that actually in pretty great detail a little bit earlier in the stream, so you can go back and watch that if you want. But I did discuss that actually in quite in a substantial amount of detail. So if you want to check that out, I talked about that a little bit earlier in the stream, but I just don't want to repeat myself because I definitely went into it in pretty great detail at Alexander Lopez. So. Yeah, at Sam Fisher, the kiss, I knew something was wrong. Me too. I mean, the kiss of death, as Peter Ingenito said, it definitely looked like it was a goodbye kiss. Maybe Saul didn't realize that at the time, or maybe he was in denial, but man, that was tough. So, At Nick Russ, thank you again so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. As far as the world knows, the last two founders of HHM both committed suicide, one in fire and one in water. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. I mean, does that mean Jim, or I guess the Howard's dad, I mean, was the last one, but was he sort of buried in the earth? I don't know. But yeah, that's a great observation for sure. And like Richard Swigert said to Jimmy and Kim, they sort of have to change their name. It's just sort of there's just so much, that the name is sort of, unfortunately tarnished, where, two of the founders commit suicide. Again, it's sort of very, ominous to anyone who wants to be, have their legal representation. So their name is changing. And, I talked about this in a little bit in my previous stream. Again, as bitter, as absolutely devastating it was to see that funeral where Rich was saying, I didn't see it coming, addiction is a real thing. I mean, just this total concocted, fabricated lie that they spun about Howard Hamlin, where, again, while he was revered in death, despite the fact he committed suicide, at the same time, it was just so tough to watch and just such a dark storyline to happen to a genuinely good character, a genuinely good person in Howard Hamlin. And yeah, like he said, the corporate law profession is cutthroat. He took away Kim's office, But again, if you read accounts of what people have to do when they work on Wall Street or when they work in a very sort of powerful sort of corporate situation, again, there's so much of that goes on. And even Kim, again, it wasn't really about that. And to say that is worth of what everything they did to Howard Hamlin is just totally unbased and unjustified. And like I said, that was a tough scene to watch there for sure. Just so many different aspects of that scene. It was just unbelievably tough. So at Matt D, we never saw Cliff's son. On a little bit of a lighter note, yeah, again, in hindsight, that might have been throwaway dialogue. So, and yeah, it's a great point too. All the sort of the Henry, or I don't know exactly what the name of the foundation was. I think it was a fictional foundation, but Kim not being able to start up her pro bono practice like she wanted to. Again, pretty devastating when all was said and done. So again, we see the sort of continuation of that in the next scene. So. Yeah, I did remember the name. It was something again, Beneke. Again, I don't know if it was. It did start with a B. I'm not sure if it was Beneke. I'll definitely have to go. I can't obviously play it now, but I can definitely go back and I'll definitely have to go back and listen to that for sure. The new name. It seemed very generic. So you're Bruckner maybe. Something Bruckner was in the name. Yeah, something like that. So. Or Booker, something. Yeah, it started with a B. I'd have to. I think it was just kind of something that was just very generic and something that they just had to distance themselves from the from Ricky Rubio from the HHM name on so sorry, got distracted from the chat there. So again, next scene here, again, great continuation here where Kim is in court, again, going about her daily routine. And again, I thought to myself, there's just no way Kim can do this. So again, we see her tapping the pen and, not to get bogged down in too many details here, but long story long, Kim basically excuses herself from this case. And of course, the judge is very taken aback by this because of the lack of formal procedure and, basically demands a specific reason why she can't continue. And of course, following Kim saying that she didn't want to say why, eventually Kim says, I can't continue because I'm no longer a lawyer. And that's the big payoff here where, she just could not continue as she was. She could not, again, in a sort of very twisted way where, despite all the terrible things that she indirectly did to Howard Hamlin, at the same time, which made her look terrible. Again, she still has some sort of sense of morality where she can't be a sort of officer of the court after the just sort of total egregious sort of manipulation that she did to the law. Where Charles McGill says the law is sacred, and in many respects, I mean, in hindsight, maybe Kim feels the same way. So there's just no way she can continue as she is. She just can't. Again, it would just be. It almost would make her look terrible almost. It would almost make her look somewhat sociopathic, maybe. Again, I keep throwing that word around when it has an actual meaning, and I'm not a psychologist, so I probably shouldn't be using it. But again, as we talked about a little bit like after the scene, when we see her back at her apartment, the sort of, big reveal happens where, she can't just go about her life. If she really just said, again, it's the dichotomy. In the hindsight, I guess I was sort of right, in the prediction where Saul is sort of able to continue to be a lawyer and live his life, but Kim was just unable to do so. And it just sort of makes a lot of sense where, I guess despite how, irredeeming Kim came across during that speech, I guess she comes across as a little bit more redeemable when, she just can no longer be a lawyer. Where, she sort of has more of a sense of guilt maybe than Saul Goodman does. I'm sure Saul has some guilt to it, but like he said in the next scene where it's like, I understand you want to jump out of your own skin right now, but it's just, there's just a lot of sort of complexity here and sort of lot to ruminate on in the days to come for sure. So and then of course, we see the scene here with the ashtray, Kim smoking on the basically on the porch, the balcony, and we see Saul Goodman rushing home, following getting this news from Kim that she had quit the legal profession, and of course Saul saying, like, I get it, I know why you're doing this. Like I talked about, you want to jump out of your own skin, but you can't give up everything. You can't give up everything for this. It's like, all right, we'll work this out. We'll go back to the hotel. We'll write the letters to the bar association and everyone saying, the brief moment of lapse of judgment maybe. But of course, Kim's saying it's already done. And when he finally goes into the sort of the bedroom to I guess, go about getting ready to go to the hotel, we see again Kim's bags all packed. Sort of try to find the scene here. But yeah, I mean, the bags are all packed here, and then we have this just unbelievable piece of just dialogue here where, Kim says to Saul, you asked if I was bad for you, and, she's basically saying we are bad for each other. Like separate we're okay, but, together we are, we hurt people. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm bastardizing the actual speech here. I'll have to go back and listen to it more than one time. But just an unbelievably emotional speech here, basically saying that in the long of it, despite the fact that we love each other, we can't do this anymore. We cannot be together anymore. People get hurt. We are bad for each other. This relationship has to end, even though I love you and I've had the time of my life with you. Again, it was a very sort of tough scene to watch. And, as, I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream, this at this point in time, despite after this scene, we see this big rapid advancement, this big time jump, and for all intents and purposes, right now, the sort of reasoning behind Saul becoming who he was, the breaking up of Kim Wexler, the breaking up with Kim Wexler. And again, it's kind of, he was trying to say, we're gonna fix this, we'll move out of this place, we'll never live here again, and again, it was just, despite sort of Kim looking bad with everything she's done and even what she said to Cheryl Hamlin, she still has somewhat of a conscience and somewhat of a moral compass where she just says we cannot stay together. We just cannot continue this. And again, a very sobering scene here for sure. I'll have to go back and rewatch it, but again, and then finally after this, the very last scene in this episode, we get the infamous time jump. Man, and so again, like I talked about, it's still a little bit surreal, but we're finally in the Breaking Bad timeline. We're finally there for all intents and purposes. It was great to see sort of Saul in this very opulent house, and again, you wonder again. There's a lot of sort of ambiguity. You don't know what happened. You do not know what became of that Sandpiper money. With Saul saying in that deleted scene about 3 marriages, the Beachcomber Apartments, last stop on the loser chain. You imagine that they didn't just leave that apartment that one night and never see each other again. You imagine that marriage was annulled and all of this, and you imagine all of the sort of legal documents were signed and everything. But again, we don't know what became of all that money. But again, it's very ambiguous with the sort of 1 year or maybe even 3-year time jump. Again, it hasn't really been displayed to us depending on what date, the 2 dates that we've seen of 05 and 08. But yeah, we see Saul in this house. He's definitely spent the night with a prostitute, as he did many times in the plot of Breaking Bad, or at least it was heavily implied that he did, and it was kind of cool. It was the first time we ever saw Saul Goodman home alone in his home. Again, in Breaking Bad, we only saw him in the context of facilitating Walter White or Jesse Pinkman or someone related to that, the meth empire of Walter White. But yeah, it was pretty crazy to see, and it was kind of interesting. He was basically the same person he was in the plot of Breaking Bad. Again, I was wondering if he would be somewhat different at home, but again, he was the exact same person. And yeah, as someone said in the chat, that was a pretty brutal comb over for sure. But again, it's definitely consistent with his sort of balding head and his sort of receding hairline. And again, in regards to the aesthetics here, again, we see him getting dressed and everything, and we see him having that conversation. But in respects to the aesthetics of Saul Goodman, I think they did a pretty good job. I definitely think they made a good job making him look like the character we first saw in the plot of Breaking Bad, right here. So the suit seemed right on point. He was wearing the Bluetooth headpiece. The hair was very similar. It had grown out. It looked really good for sure. So yeah, at Candy Nose Twinskins, yeah, I think it's '05 because yeah, you can't be driving around with an expired tag like that. So I'm pretty sure it's '05. So we've probably jumped about a year in the future. Those tags expire in November of '05. The handicap placard expires in '08. Who knows if that's even real? Maybe it's a total fabrication. But yeah, again, at XYZKRA, yeah, it's been a little bit more than a year. I mean, it could be about a year. I mean, who knows? I mean, hair loss can be very precipitous for people. It's definitely possible. It happens sometimes. I mean, again, it can come very quickly for many people. So maybe it happened to Saul. But yeah, just a little bit surreal still to see. Yeah, at Facade Games, the face did look a little bit different. But hey, what are you gonna do? I think for what it was, I think they did a very good job trying to emulate the character as much as possible. Again, at XYZKRA, that's the question. I mean, again, I'll kind of try to fast forward here to if I can get again, what Saul has the white caddy as well. It's going to be hard to get a clear shot of these tags. I don't want to sort of play the episode here, but it's going to be, I don't know if I can get a clear shot of the tags. Yeah, it's somewhere in here. I'd have to play it. I can maybe sort of turn my screen off for a second. Trying to pull up a picture of the tags here, so. But I can't play the, here we go. So yeah, again, it's kind of grainy, but you can definitely, it's kind of hard to see, but it definitely says, again, this probably isn't doing very much good. But yeah, this definitely says November, again, it's kind of hard to see, but this definitely says November '05 on the tags of the white Cadillac. So again, this is when the tags expire, is November of '05. So again, here we go. There are the tags right there. I think if I can make it go down again. There we go, November of '05. And again, we don't know the exact story of the sort of white Cadillac. Again, we hear Marco say to him in season 1 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Marco, where, Saul, Slippin' Jimmy's a lawyer. I'd imagine you'd be driving around a white caddy all over town making bank. And, so maybe that's the sort of genesis of him getting that white Cadillac, like Marco told him to, more or less, in all the way back in Cicero, Illinois in season 1. So, November of '05, that's the date we have here on the and I thought, okay, so if it expires in November of '05, we're maybe a year in advance because the breakup happened in June of '04, because D-Day was right around, June 18th, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. Don't quote me on that date, but again, I mean, unless Saul is driving around with expired tags, which I guess is possible, but I feel like if it was '08, they would just put '08 on the tags, That's just my opinion, that they would put November of '08 on the tags. So, I mean, maybe Saul is driving around with expired tags, but you can definitely be pulled over for that. That's for damn sure, so. At Brian C. That's an interesting sort of component. I never even think about that. So it could be possible. Again, it was very ambiguous. I could be totally wrong in my assessments That scene was very ambiguous for sure. But yeah, you could be onto something there for sure if that's why he left. But again, Gus never returned in the remainder of the episode, so maybe we'll get a sort of continuation. And if that is displayed to us in the next episode, it would definitely make sense. So at Michelle, yeah, it's an expiration date, but again, maybe sort of that would last many, many years again, because again, there's definitely maybe it was I wouldn't imagine that they made a total accident here in respect to the date of what date it actually is. So, and again, I'm gonna have to turn off my screen here to get a shot of to try to get a shot of to try to get a shot of the tags now. So again, yes, at Sam Fisher, I don't know New Mexico law. I do not know New Mexico law, but again we can go a little bit further here in the advancement again to try to get a shot of these tags. I mean, it's true, the date is very important for sure. So again, it wasn't outwardly displayed to us. We don't know. So at XYZ KRA, I see what you're saying, but again, I'm a little bit confused. Why wouldn't they just put November '08 on the tags? I don't know. So again, I'm trying to find the scene of the tags here, and I can't play it, so that's why my screen is turned off, hopefully. Kind of funny here, I'm actually just, rewatching this, but, Saul going back in to put the tags on, so. Oh, wow, that was a quick shot. I could hardly see that. Whoever saw that was a quick shot there. Maybe that was a sort of accident or something to that effect, or was that a sort of a, was that the same tag? Was that a sort of Easter egg to the plot of Breaking Bad of Walter White's tag? Again, that was a short shot there. I can hardly see that. That was a quick shot. I don't know how people pulled that. They cut away immediately. Holy cow, you can hardly see that. Yeah, okay, there you go. I can pull it up now. It's pretty damn hard to see, but that was quick. Hold on. So yeah, hopefully that will clear away. So yeah, 11/20/08. That's what it says on the tags there. So again, I'll have to go back to the pilot. Was that like the same day that Walter White's tags expired or something to that effect? So again, that is something right there. That's a little peculiar. I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know if that was a prop master error or something to that effect. I'm not too well versed in television production, but that is something right there. Good catch there for sure. Anyone who saw that. So yeah, you can definitely see 11/20/08. I'll have to go back and see what I think Walter White's tags expired in November as well, if I'm not mistaken. So again, a little bit confusing. Again, it's definitely a big difference of whether we're in '08 or '05, because if we're in '08, it's right around Walter White joining the Albuquerque criminal underworld. If we're in '05, we're still a long way away. So very good question, and sort of peculiar. Definitely something to think about in the days to come. So. But yeah, again, we then see the office. It's now set up in the exact same style. The waiting room is even the same, with Francesca being behind that sort of wall of glass. It makes sense where she doesn't want to be in with the sort of clientele that Saul Goodman has. It makes a lot of sense to me where it goes to sort of this setup here. But then again, we see this sign here, "Man of the People." So again, it's you would imagine, was he able to establish himself that quickly in about a year? Again, that's very peculiar. I'm kind of upset about that. I would hope that they would just, I wish they just made it November of '08. That would make a lot more sense to me. So again, I'm a little bit confused here. That's a little bit of a disappointment. So, but anyway, we see the waiting room. The whole styling is exactly the same. He has the inflatable Statue of Liberty that we saw at the Kettleman's office. Again, we don't know the sort of backstory of that. But yeah, and finally, we sort of, the final scene here with Saul Goodman saying to Francesca about to start his day, "Let justice be done, though the heavens fall." Again, it's something that Charles McGill said to Howard Hamlin in season 3 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Chicanery. I mean, it's likely that Charles said that to Jimmy at some point in his life as well. He liked to say those, legal parables like your argument is built on false principles, therefore it collapses. You would imagine Charles said that to him a lot over the course of his life. Very sort of, again, kind of eerie and sobering to hear him say that, to Francesca, and thus ending the episode. So, just unbelievable writing, in my opinion. It just, it makes a lot of sense why they sort of structured the episode in the way that they did, just based on the limited amount of on-screen time for episodes to go. So, just quite the episode indeed, in my humble opinion. So. At Pineal Tech, are you talking about the teaser that they displayed, the black and white teaser? I mean, that wasn't in the episode. This was definitely the final scene of the episode. So yeah, I mean, just like I said, I absolutely enjoyed this episode. I thought it was unbelievable. I thought like I said, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but again, the episode in the grand scheme of things just made absolute total sense to me. And I really enjoyed it. And there's still so many mysteries heading into this final 4 episodes in respect to what's going to happen with Kim, in respect to, Saul Goodman now being Saul Goodman like we saw in Breaking Bad. Only 4 episodes left. How is Gene Takovic going to factor into the storyline? How is Walter White and Jesse Pinkman going to factor into the storyline? From what I've seen, they're going to appear in the next episode. That's at least the rumors that I've seen floating around out there. So, just unbelievable episode through and through. I agree, Chauncey Holt. It was an unbelievable episode at Chauncey Holt. Yeah, it's side to side. I already missed Jimmy and Kim. Yeah, definitely true. Again, that's a great point, XYZKRA, the sort of public masturbator. You do wonder, are they in the timeline of Breaking Bad? Because, again, Walter White, joined the Albuquerque criminal underworld in September of '08. And again, I don't know the exact point when Badger was arrested, but it was season 2, so maybe they are in '08. Again, I don't know why he's driving around with expired tags. I hope maybe I'll have to listen to the Insider podcast, or we'll get a sort of revelation about that, but I was very confused about that. Again, I really appreciate people pointing out the handicap placard, because I didn't even see that the first time around. It was such a quick shot. It was like a second maybe or two, but there's a very long close-up of that license plate of November of '05. So, very great point. So, if I'm not mistaken, isn't November 20? Wasn't Saul good again? No, I'm not sure. I should remember his birthday, but wasn't his birthday in November if I'm not mistaken? So. Yeah, that's Smokeless Choice. Quite the error in continuity there. I'm kind of upset about that. So, Badger was arrested in December of '08. Yeah, he was definitely arrested in '08 for sure. It was season 2, so we were still in '08, but flashback tags, lol. They flashed back to the tags, but then when he drove in, it was the present day at Agent Neptune. That's hilarious. So, yeah, Saul's birthday, November 12th at Michael Meredith. Yeah, that's right. So, again, the tags were, the placard expired in November 20th of '08. So, yeah, a lot more questions than answers there, unfortunately. Again, I really appreciate people for pointing that out, because I was about to roll completely with the fact that it was November of '05, so. That's funny, Cristianeros. Coincidence, man. I guess those things happen sometimes. That's kind of funny. Again, yeah, Julian V could be a nod to Saul's first scene with Badger. I didn't even consider that. That the public masturbator line definitely rings much more consequential. So, add Big Tuna. I talked about that wine scene earlier in the stream. So if you want to go back, I talked about it in quite great detail. So if you want to go back and if you want to go back and hear me talk about that, I definitely talked about that for sure. So. Yeah, at X.EX, that's not the current date. Yeah, again, we have a contradiction here. So we see '05 and '08. So it's kind of food for thought. Yeah, at Justin Cruz, part of me thinks it is '08 now. That definitely makes a lot more sense, because we see Saul with the sort of newspaper clippings, and he seems very established. But again, why is he driving with expired tags? I hope he gets pulled. If he gets pulled over with expired tags in the next episode, then it would make sense. So. Yeah, at Agent Neptune, that's a good point. Again, we saw Francesca being much more upbeat and sort of down to earth in Better Call Saul. But again, I don't think there was just time to see the sort of step by step process that just sort of implied that, working for Saul Goodman for as long as she did, caused her to be hardened like that. So, at Cristianeros, I mean, I know Lalo said Tuco would be out of prison in 11 months, but again, the dialogue of Breaking Bad, Skinny Pete says, what has it been like a year? And so that would imply he kind of got out in '07. So again, a lot of questions here for sure, especially if you're sort of a stickler for the sort of Breaking Bad, the dialogue in the canon of Breaking Bad. So yeah, but when all is said and done, unbelievable episode here. I really enjoyed it. At Chauncey Holt, I'm so out of it with the timeline. When do people think they were going to jump to Saul? I mean, yeah, it was definitely necessary for sure. That's for damn sure. At Richie MC, just based on the nature of the show, and like I talked about, only 5 episodes remaining. Sorry, Chauncey Holt, or who said that again? I forgot who. Yeah, it was Chauncey Holt. So again, yeah, I definitely kind of see what you're saying. So, at Richie MC, thank you so much for the super chat. Once Better Call Saul is over, Anton, would you watch Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad series in chronological order and respond to it? Are you talking about watching Breaking Bad and watching Better Call Saul and then Breaking Bad as like before like continuously? So because it's like one continuous timeline sort of. So watching it in the sense that of the way it occurred in the timeline of the universe as opposed to watching it in the way the show was created. I mean, I guess I could, and respond to it. I mean, I really don't know what I'd have to say. I mean, I feel like I've made a lot of videos on this subject matter. I've talked a lot about this show. I mean, I've talked more about Better Call Saul than Breaking Bad, that's for sure. But again, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting sort of point. Again, I think there's a lot of Better Call Saul channels out there who are, maybe sort of ruminating and thinking about what is to come when this show ends. But it's kind of an interesting sort of point you raised. So I don't know how I'd respond to it. I mean, I know the series pretty well, but again, I don't know what sort of angle you're sort of getting at there at Richie MC. Thank you so much for the super chat. But is there something specific about watching the show consecutively from, Uno to Felina, of the first episode of Better Call Saul to the last episode of Breaking Bad? Is there something specific that you were sort of angling there for? At Uri Groves, New Mexico handicap placards last 4 years. If that's true, that's a game changer there. That would imply that it is '05. So that's a game changer there at Uri Groves. That's an interesting point. I did not know that. I don't know the state laws in New Mexico. So if I take you at your word there, that's an interesting detail for sure. Again, I don't at x.ex it's true. So we are in '05. Again, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know enough about the laws of New Mexico, unfortunately. So at Uri Groves. All right. So maybe it is '05. Maybe it is '05, despite, maybe it making more sense to meet up with Walter White and Jesse Pinkman, that it would be '08. Again, I think that would be there's no way in the editing room where they're staring at that license plate for like 5-10 seconds, like of the scene of the episode where they said, oh, we're going to miss that completely. So, yeah, that's definitely a good question for sure. So, at Samuel Fisher, like I talked about, man, I mean, male pattern baldness can be precipitous. It definitely can, from what I've known about it. So, and from from people I've known, so it's definitely possible. But again, I hope we get an official confirmation from somewhere. So, at Full Hay One, that's funny, man. That's funny. Again, at XYZKRA, yeah, I talked about that a little bit earlier about Tuco, about how Lalo's dialogue kind of contradicts Skinny Pete's dialogue from the plot of Breaking Bad. So, definitely some food for thought there. So, Yeah, Nick Russ, I guess technically it could be November of '04. I guess technically because isn't it the day that it's issued and then it expires a year later? So again, long story long of it, we could literally go back and forth all day long. I don't think we're going to get a confirmation. We do not know what the date is. We don't. We just don't know what the date is in the grand scheme of things. We don't know what the date is, but there's just been too many contradictions in this final scene. So, at Dylan 2 times, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Are you surprised we haven't gotten any Gene content this season? Any predictions on how the timeline will end? Any Walt and Jesse appearance predictions? There's a lot of questions there for sure. I've definitely talked about all of those in some previous videos. I'll kind of go. I'll kind of answer the questions in the order you asked them. In respect to the Gene timeline, I am a little bit surprised in the lack of the continuity in respect to how every single season started with one and only one scene, the cold opening scene premiere of seasons 1 through 5. So I thought we'd see the continuity of that in season 6. But just with the nature of this show, I imagine we are going to get an entire Gene episode. It just seems necessary, just based on the fact we haven't seen any of it so far this season. I've talked about it a lot. There's so much to address there. At the same time, I've wondered, is the very last scene we see, is it going to be, is it going to take place in the Gene Takovic timeline? Seemingly. And based on the way the season's progressed so far, I just think the show was going to end with Gene. So I think that's why we haven't seen too much of him so far. Again, how Gene's storyline will end, I talk about this almost every stream. I have absolutely no idea. It's just, again, it's one of those completely open-ended things. I'm sort of coming around to the idea of this sort of happy ending with him and Kim somehow. Maybe I'm being too idealistic. I talked about it a little bit earlier in the stream. That's kind of where I'm sort of leaning at this very moment right now. I may change my mind in the future. And in respect to the Walt and Jesse appearances, apparently it's going to be a much bigger role than, it's not going to be some Flash-Fi appearance anymore. It's not going to happen in the Better Call Saul timeline, that's for sure. And again, I wonder if those scenes are going to be more consequential to Saul Goodman's actions in the plot of Breaking Bad, potentially. Just, again, based on the way the show has gone, I kind of think that, maybe something to do with the Brock poisoning, maybe. Again, that's off the top of my head. I could change my mind on that just based on what happens over the, the next episode and beyond. Again, and as I've been talking about for the last 5-10 minutes, the date of when it is right now is actually very important, especially in respect to Walter White's appearance, because if it's only '05, Walter White is in no way affiliated with the Albuquerque criminal underworld. He was Mr. Chips, who never did anything wrong until, he turned 50 years old in 2008. So, the date's very important in that respect. With Jesse Pinkman, he's been in the game for, basically since high school for all intents and purposes. So, apparently we're going to see scenes with them together and apart. At least these are the rumors that I've read. So, again, those are just sort of, that's where my head's kind of leaning right now in respect to those questions. And thank you so much for the super chat, Dylan 2 times. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. I appreciate it, Dylan 2 times. Yeah, again, thank you so much. I appreciate the compliment. So, and again, if anyone's still here, and if anyone, if I'm kind of stumbling on my words here for what I am about to ask. If anyone here has been watching the stream and has been enjoying it, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. Like I talked about in my previous stream, I'm kind of approaching a cool milestone in my opinion. I know for me it's kind of cool, the 5K subs. So if you've enjoyed this stream and you're still watching, or if it's the first time tuning in and you're enjoying it, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to this channel. So again, that just kind of putting that out there. So I hope not, Stone Yoda. I really hope not. I agree. I hope he's not wearing a bald cap for sure. I really hope he immerses himself in his appearance. I did see him at that sort of celebrity softball game in LA, and he had a full beard and he had this sort of wild hair. So maybe he couldn't because he was doing it for. But then again, this was filmed back in 2021. So right, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully he shaved his head. I really hope he did. So. At Lee Barocas Johnson, yeah. Again, I saw Price on the on the IMDb credits for this episode, but he didn't appear. So again, I hope he's back. I really do. I hope he's Danny. I've made videos about Price being the Danny who owns the laser tag. I've made a couple videos on that in the past for a while, basically ever since season 4, and maybe even after season 3 of Better Call Saul, and also right before this season, I made a video as well. But yeah, late summer of 2020. Yeah, so hopefully he shaved his head at Lewis A9. Hopefully he did. And but I did see him now. He had some crazy hair and a beard. And again, he's an actor. He has to, have certain hair requirements based on filming obligations. I mean, they even they CGI'd Henry Cavill's mustache in Superman, didn't they? So it is what it is. But again, Chris Daneros, I talked about that a little bit. The dialogue of Skinny Pete and what Tuco said and what Lalo said to Hector in something in Bad Choice Road. Again, those contradict each other. So again, just kind of food for thought as well about did he get out in 05 or did he get out in 07? So that's Smokeless Choice. Again, thank you for the anecdotal evidence. So yeah, again, we don't know what date it is, and it's actually again, I'm sorry, I missed on the name here. As Dylan 2 times said, in respect to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman's appearance, the date is very important, especially in respect to Walter White. So, at Susie Bratu, thank you so much for subscribing. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the sort of inside baseball here, but I don't know. I feel like I don't ask enough for people to subscribe. I just feel like it is what it is. But then again, I see the biggest YouTubers, they're always asking people to subscribe. So maybe that's why their subscriptions are so big. So maybe they're on to something. So, but again, really appreciate it, Susie Bratu. Thank you so much. Yeah, at Facade Games again, Kim getting disappearing with the vacuum cleaner repairman. I don't know if that's in the cards for her. So again, she didn't even really know about it. She saw that card when he bought the sort of book from Caldera, but she didn't really know what it was for. So and actually, it's kind of funny. You say at full hay, you didn't notice that Saul's hair is thinning. I mean, if you go back and watch Breaking Bad, I believe in the first seasons, maybe 2, 3, and 4, he definitely sort of had the comb over bald spot. But in season 5, I think they sort of covered up his bald spot, and I think it was sort of done aesthetically, to sort of make him look better for the show. And you can sort of call that an error in continuity, maybe not really, but at the same time, if we remember, Walter White's teeth got so much nicer in Breaking Bad. I mean, season 1, his teeth were kind of crooked and or crowded, I think is the right word. We're more long story long. His teeth got much better compared to what they had in season 1 of Breaking Bad. It's actually kind of an interesting sort of detail there. And again, it's done for television. It is what it is. But he had some shiny sort of pearly whites in season 5 of Breaking Bad. And again, you wonder about being a stickler for the dialogue. Where did Walter White get Invisalign? And it wasn't displayed to us on screen or something to that effect. So again, it is what it is. It's kind of complicated in respect to the sort of aesthetics of making television. But again, in the grand scheme of things, I really enjoyed the attention to detail that was paid to trying to make Saul look like his character. So at Spike Rince, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Spike Rince, come on, man. I guess that's funny. I see what you did there. Spike Rince. Good, that well played. Well played. Tell you the truth, I have shown my ugly face in many videos in the past, and maybe I'm finagling for a sort of partnership or sponsorship with a sunglasses company. So for lack of a better term, to accept a buyout like Walter White did for $1, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And at the same time, like I said, I've shown my face in many of my videos, but I was kind of taken aback by again XYZKRA. Like I said, I've shown my face. I've shown my beautiful or ugly face, depending on what you on your opinion. I've shown it in many videos, and I just started wearing them during the live stream. I was kind of a little bit of sort of uneasy about live streaming, but after seeing Dr. Disrespect and sort of him sort of being in full costume, I sort of said, you know what, maybe he's onto something there. So trying to I don't know, am I cultivating a brand? Who knows what we're doing. So at Spike Rince, I appreciate the subscription. So am I Agent 47 in disguise? Man, this is too funny. So I think Gene will live with Kim in Canada. So Justin Cruz, they'll talk about, we could go off on another hour tangent on that. So Spiker Rinse, I appreciate the compliment. So, but on that note, it is actually kind of getting late. It's actually already the next day here. So on that note, I think I've sort of wrapped up my what I've had to say on this episode. Again, unbelievable episode. I was really looking forward to it. At Luis A9, thank you so much for the super chat. How did Hector end up in the desert house with Tuco? Again, I talked about that as well. I really hope they display that to us somehow. The very first time we ever see Tio Hector Salamanca, he's living in the house in the country in the episode entitled Grilled. Again, a very sort of the abridged version of that. I believe I've talked about this in a video. I think maybe after Tuco gets out of jail, despite Tuco being this bruising brooder who is just an absolute brooder, is that a word? Just bruising, absolute, just aggressive person. He still loves his Hector, and even that look that Lalo gave to Hector about seeing him in Casa Tranquila, where I think my interpretation is just Tuco could not stand to see Hector in that house in Casa Tranquila, and he'd rather see him put in the house in the country. That's sort of my interpretation of how he got there. Are we going to see a step-by-step process of that? It's possible, but that's sort of my interpretation for sure. So, again, I appreciate the super chat. I've talked about that in a previous video for sure. And again, who knows? Maybe we'll see it. Maybe we won't. Tuco getting out of prison would seemingly be a big part of that. So, at JoJo's ASMR, yeah, maybe we will. Again, maybe the Kettlemans will factor in somehow with Ice Station Zebra Associates. I talked about that in a previous video as well. So, at Richie MC, I don't even know that reference, to be honest. So, but anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna have to wrap it up here. It's kind of getting late. It was a crazy long day for me. It was a good day, but it was a long day. And, a great episode. I really enjoyed talking about it. I was really looking forward to seeing it. It did not disappoint. I really enjoyed reviewing it. Like I said, I got a long day tomorrow. Will I upload tomorrow? Hopefully I will. It may be later at night just based on my schedule. So if I do upload, it will be, it will be later at night. Just like I said, I do have a very busy real life. To tell you the truth. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. It's late here on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so much for the super chats. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you for everyone who subscribed to this channel tonight, and just everyone for watching, and thank you for the chat. Like I said, always learn so much. I didn't even notice the 08 handicap placard. I really appreciate people for pointing that out. And yeah, it was really great talking about this episode. I was looking forward to this all day and all week. And again, I will, be making videos in the future. I'll definitely be streaming this week as well, hopefully. And like I said, thank you again for tuning in, everyone. Take it easy, and I'll see you guys around.